of all time that actually changed the course of our nature. Opening the gates of hell, that they actually brought, change human genome. Is it ethical? Is it a good thing to do or not? What if in a few months, this information sort of comes out and they say, oh, this is pointless. Well, unfortunately, we've already done it. And because, we didn't know this was a problem, we are going to give you a solution, don't worry. We'll give you some gene therapy with mRNA suppressing the genes that we've inserted. So the therapy is going to be genetic as well, and it's going to open the gold rush to gene therapies for everything, from military to whatever you like. And it's all written there, you can actually see it. The only thing we can do right now is actually try to make people that don't have the technical understanding of this trying to realize that, we are not playing with dynamite. We are playing with something, I'm not even able to understand the depth of. So this is the actual question. Are we already there? Have we already, changed human genome into billions of cells of billions of people? And, the fact that after almost 3 years, we don't know, well, it begins, to me, too many hints that this has already happened. But, let's not despair and hope that the human body is actually somehow able eventually to get rid of these things. Because in the end, we are shifting. We went from trying to understand our place in the universe or in the world by being guided to be the best of us, because there is something that created all of this with a purpose, and our purpose becomes understanding this purpose and trying to realize whatever world is going to actually make us happy, which is a push to elevate our thoughts, our research, and our ethics system to what you're seeing already everywhere with the AI, with genetic modification. It's all actually been written down very clearly, in the transhumanist people, those that actually want to see the human consciousness being transferred into a machine that actually can live forever. The first part of their journey is this one, is changing human DNA, then integration of machine and human body to get to the point where we actually can download our conscience in a machine that is going to live forever. Try to imagine just what it would mean for property or something like this, and the people that actually are, have been for centuries playing with whatever we call, money without people realizing what kind of game that they're in. So I actually hope, that we go back to understanding that the only real thing that actually it's important is our humanity, is the way we express love, is the way we fight for truth. And, what we've seen in the last years has been, because of fear of dying, we've lost our freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom of research, freedom in every sense of the word. We have forgotten that before us, thousands, if not millions of people had died because, to give us that freedom that we gave away so cheaply because we were afraid of dying. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for your invitation, and thank you to Lily and Roberts for the organization. My name is Emmanuel Darle, and I am a researcher in computer and science. I will speak French in my native language, in French. Donc je vais
I will present some elements. regarding the unwanted effects on pregnant women and the spike protein passage through milk. To set things in context, the COVID jabs appeared very fast in France and in Europe, and pregnant women started being vaccinated in March 2021, and our Ministry of Health, Mr. Olivier Véran, injected the first pregnant woman in front of the whole country on TV. Still, we have to notice two fundamental things. That is, in between December 2020 and February 2021, before the campaigns in Europe, FDA in a report has proven that there were severe adverse events for pregnant women. They actually presented a lot of cases of women with already existing symptoms. A quarter of those women had abortions, a very high percentage of them. So they observed 6 premature deliveries, and out of those 6 premature deaths, it was observed that the babies had tachycardia 7 days after the mother received the second dose of vaccine. The FDA report was saying that the vaccine has reached the baby transplacentally, and the babies were actually born with signs of thrombosis, or they were stillborns with pneumothorax conditions or other severe respiratory diseases. FDA was telling us back then that these substances were transmitted from the mother to the baby. Other issues were connected to breastfeeding. Adverse effects appeared during breast feeding. The babies had fever, they noticed irritability, headache, urticaria, rash, or even more serious conditions, angioedema. The European Union started with the COVID jabs, knowing all this information, and another report from April 2021 proved that there are side effects in pregnant ladies. Surprisingly, it was that out of 270 pregnancies mentioned by the FDA, only 32 of those were showing these effects, and out of those 32, 28 out of the 32 pregnancies, 28 babies died for 238 pregnancies, there was no known outcome. Everybody knew about those dangers, but the pregnant women did not know, unfortunately. The Independent Scientific Council, where I'm working, myself with Louis Fouché, analyzed the data and came to the conclusion that a quarter of the vaccinated mothers were showing serious side effects. There was important increase of declarations of adverse effects in pregnant women. In between 1990 and 2019, there were around 2,400 cases reported. In between 2020 and 2023, number of reported cases has doubled. So without any simultaneous treatment for the majority of cases, because the pregnant women could not receive almost any other drug. So all these adverse effects were caused by the COVID vaccine, Pfizer first and then Moderna. So the injection with RNA leads to adverse effects in pregnant women. When it comes to fetal deaths, we had 144 between 21 and 23 compared to 48 cases in between 1990 and 2020. So the dynamics in that database showed that in the past there were very few fetal deaths in the past and so many more in the past 2 to 3 years. So we had a lot of premature deliveries. Again, complete different situation compared to the past. And the risk for fetal death is documented in the literature. There is an article of multiple authors, Thorpe et al., and they say that the COVID jabs risk the death of fatal death with 557%. So we see that there is this huge mortality rate. In most European countries where the population has been massively vaccinated, we have here the Germany example, where we saw that the natality is decreasing and the mortality is hugely increased after introducing the jabs in the EU. With regard to France, in pink, this is the curve of births in 2022, and with blue we have the previous years. In 2023 we have this line with red down below. So the pink curve is under the blue ones, and the projections for 2023 are horrific. All statisticians say the same. The same phenomenon happens in Romania because the natality is represented in blue, and we notice the reality with green, so with yellow, excuse me. So the yellow curve showing the reality is way below the projected expectation for 2021 and 2022. Something happened, and we can see this everywhere in the European Union, in all these countries where people massively vaccinated. In France, in Italy, Spain, Germany, we see everywhere this very low natality rate compared to the predictions. Some will say that this is an issue, but there's no causality here. I've been hearing this in the past 3 years, but we can observe already an increase. So we are talking about an 18-fold increase when it comes to menstrual cycle disorder compared to all documented years. When I presented this in front of the Senate, I was told that yes, move on. This is passive pharmacovigilance. There's nothing to talk about here. This is an open medic database. That is the number of drugs that are co-paid by social insurances in France. We can draw comparisons here. We can even check the number of boxes containing certain drugs, and we can check the data from 2014 to 2022. We tried to analyze two classes of drugs, those treating fertility on the one hand and others compared to this. So we analyzed progestative drugs that can be used for fertility or menstrual cycle disorders, and we can see that in between 2021 and 2022, there was an increase of 34% of progestin reimbursements in French health insurance. This figure is the equivalent of one extra box of these drugs in every 4 women. This is something, right? In between 2016 and 2020, we were speaking about 4 million boxes per year, and then in between 2021 and 2022, this number increased to 5,600,000 boxes per year. This class of drugs is mainly prescribed for gynecological pathology, endometriosis, a cycle disorder, fibroids, and then for other hormone replacement therapies, obstetrics, infertility, especially. If we look at some drugs that are prescribed more often, we observe here that for cold-prone use for fertility, in 2019, they were selling 350K boxes, but in 2022, this number was double. It was at 700 boxes. So we are talking about a huge increase in the past year. So between 2021 and 2022, the number of boxes increased by 100,000. What is the issue? They are prescribed easily. The National Agency for the Drug Safety in France launched an alert saying that the risk of cerebral tumors increased 4 times in women. So maybe the fertility cases have been somehow alleviated, but now there is an increased risk of meningiomas, and this happens with other classes of drugs used for fertility, such as Dostinex. We had around 100K boxes in 2020, and in with more than 125K boxes. So after presenting these figures to the CSI, they told me that this meant nothing. It was a passive pharmacovigilance, even though the signals were not necessarily related to the COVID. But now we observe that pregnant women and women, generally men as well, are sick. In France, we have very different an association of the victims. Some children died on the day of their vaccination in France, very young children, and nobody is giving an answer. We are always told that there's nothing to do with the vaccine, but we hope that the public authorities understand that they created the problem among the population. So what was the purpose, we may ask, for those vaccines? Thank you, everyone.
Din respect pentru limba română,
Out of respect,
voi vorbi în limba mea.
I will speak in my mother tongue, in Romania. Thank you for your understanding.
Sunt Damian Baciu,
I am Damian Baciu, physician specialized in pediatrics and vaccinology out of any conflicts of interest. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. I am honored to be here together with the remarkable personalities from medicine and science in all its specialties. Life stays with the king at the table, but this story is as old as Methuselah, since well, kings and lies have made team. Well, the times are what we see today. And starting January 2020, the whole world will successively go through a series of events massively influenced by the official intentional message built up so that it hides reality. In the first year, a general feeling of major fear and panic was created that because people's health sanity was threatened for the first time by a mortal virus that was about to produce an enormous number of victims. That was the constant and persistent message coming from the political and medical authorities sent through all the media in the entire world. In March 2020, Neil Ferguson was stating his prediction over 7 billion infections and 4 million deaths. In the same spirit, the World Health Organization, sometimes health organizations, forecast 3.4 million deaths subsequent to the infection, but the page was erased immediately after. John Hayes forecast a mortality rate 11 times lower, 0.3%, starting March 2020. We see the first governmental data coming from ministries of health, from research institutes of diseases, medical independent institutions, articles published in medical journals, prestigious journals that stated the same facts with small differences. Children were infected in very low rates and percentages. They didn't pass on the disease, or the degree was very small. So out of children with the COVID infection, there were no symptoms found. When they were hospitalized, they spent between 5 and 7 days within the hospital. Pathology was a simple cold, and some reportings showed multisystemic inflammatory syndrome with approximately 50% myocarditis. Deaths were extremely low, particular showed in those with important comorbidities. As of 21st January 2021, Dr. Maria Van Kekove, WHO representative, stated in an interview, the biggest part of children have the tendency to show no symptoms. Fortunately, children and teenagers have the tendency to be less affected than adults. All this data was known by all the political and medical decision makers who managed and continue to manage medical activity in the entire world. But this data was hidden from the wide audience. We must mention that in January 2023, Professor John Ioannidis made other calculations based on additional criteria and showed that the general mortality induced by COVID-19 was in reality 10 times lower than forecast in March 2020. That is 0.034%, and the age group 0-19 years old was affected up to 0.0003%. That means 15-fold less than traffic accidents. In 2020, the official main preoccupation was to maximize by any means the number of illnesses and severe repercussions of COVID-19 and its impact on population safety and lives. Starting January 21, priority became the propaganda for the injection campaign for some experimental products, deceitfully called vaccines. And once we did the criminal attitude to hide, ignore, and deny the possible connection between injection and severe post-injection effects,